up, everybody? Welcome back to the Virzi Effect Podcast Show. My name is Paul Virzi, and you guys are listening to episode 469. I don't know what that translates to with the video since pandemic, so it's almost like a Virzi Effect 2.0. But my guest today is somebody that I wanted to have on the show actually for a long time, and super funny comedian from New York now, but originally from Ireland. And he is the reason I am getting in shape. He's the reason why working with him really helped. But the hilarious Mick Thomas. Mick, thank you for being on the Virzi Effect, buddy.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks so much. It's an honor.
No worries. Now, I just want to – you're this type of guy. This is what I love about you. We met in Los Angeles, actually.
Right.
We had a meeting out there. And we were both going in, and we met. We were talking and stuff, and I hit it off. You're my kind of dude, but you're one of these guys. Now we're gonna talk. We're gonna go into your past in a second, but you just ran the New York Marathon because you just set a goal to do it, and you literally trained for 3 weeks. And did you do it in 4 hours and like 10 minutes?
4 hours and 8 minutes. Yeah. 4 hours with no training. And here's how it came about, right? Since the pandemic, I stopped going to the gym, and it was the best thing I ever did. Because first of all, which is something I've never come to terms with over my life on this earth, is that I've got the worst. Like, you're Greek and Italian, right?
Yeah. You
got great genetics. Right, you sign up for a gym immediately, your biceps start, twinging. Right. I'm Irish, and we have the worst genetics on the planet. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I 20 minutes to drive to the gym, 30 minutes on a treadmill, 45 minutes throwing weights around, 20 minutes driving home. I'm like, it's a waste of time. So the pandemic hit, and there's a field over by me, and it's probably. I would jump the fence because they locked it up, and I would run around the field, for 5 miles and stop and do push-ups and pull-ups and whatnot. And I'm like, I'm never going back to the gym again. So just before, about 4 weeks ago, when I run, I listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks. So I'm running around and I'm listening to Marcus Latrine's book. I don't know if you, Lone Survivor.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorite. As a matter of fact, that's one of my favorite military movies.
Yeah, it's great.
And the guy,
and Michael Murphy is buried out where I ran in Calverton. One of the 4 guys is buried out there.
Wow.
So I'm running, I'm listening to this guy's story, and I'm jogging 5 miles, and I'm feeling like 5 miles, I'm starting to feel it. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm listening to this guy. I mean, the movie does not, I know assholes say that all the time, you got to read the book. But the movie does no justice to the pain these guys were in and what they actually went through physically, right? So I'm like, what if I just ran 6 miles instead of 5? I said, what if? And then I did it without it. All right, hang on. What if now it's starting to rain? It's dark. I'm like, what if I did 7?
Yeah.
So I had this mentality, and I hit 10 miles with no problem. I'm like, what the fuck have I been leaving on the table this whole time? So then I went, you know what? If these guys can go down a mountain, get the living shit shot out of them. Yeah. When you hear the real story about what Michael Murphy did before he got killed, I'm jogging with tears in my eyes, and I'm like, all right, I can never complain about anything physical again. I'm like, I'm gonna sign up for a marathon just because. What if?
Wow, and dude, that's insane, man. Like it really puts into perspective what we think is hard.
Unbelievable, man. Like when you listen to that and it's in your ear, it's an audiobook, and then you're feeling it because it's so well written. Yeah. You're feeling like, Jesus Christ, can you imagine if you're on the mountain with these guys, 4 guys, and they're fighting 200 men, bullets going off, missiles, grenades, and you go, guys, I didn't carb up, I got a stitch. Like, there's no way. There's no fucking way.
The funniest part about it is you listening to this while doing anything. It makes what you're doing so, like, it would be like if you were listening to that doing push-ups and you're like, I can't squeeze out 5 more. This guy's taking on, I mean, what did they took on that hill that they were on? I think, was there like 100 against him?
200.
200
against 4.
Against 4, and they did a pretty good job, right?
Oh man, they destroyed a bunch of them, and not only that, but the shots they took, and they kept on going, and they don't really show this in the movie, but Michael Murphy, the guy from this town I live in now, his last actions were he couldn't get a signal on his phone to call for help, so he literally walked out into the line of fire just so he could get a signal, so he could call for help. The movie just shows him on a rock calling for help, and then he gets shot and he gets slumped over. But in the real story, that guy just said goodbye to his friends and walked out into a field so he could call for help for those guys.
Wow.
And I'm like, what am I going to bitch? Like, I got to bitch it's raining?
Yeah, I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off. I'm doing outdoor shows. I'm living my dream, and I'm pissed off that the people are in lawn chairs instead of inside. And these guys, yeah, dude, that really puts it into perspective. But, like, that's the type of dude you are. When we work together, you did something. I got to say this. This is awesome, too.
You can say it. It's fine.
Can I say what I wanted to?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, we were – yeah, because there's no names being mentioned anyway.
Yeah.
We were performing in one of the early shows that I got going on after pandemic. Was I was just trying to get up, and I went out to Governor's to do their outside patio show. And I heard you on stage, and this is the type of guy that Mick is. And I think that's why, like, people love hanging out with the realness of guys like you, because he's up there, and there was just commotion, and there were people in the back. And I think it was, some comedians had walked in or whatever, younger comedians, people talking. And Mick just stopped and goes, hey, he goes, why don't you hacks actually stop and listen to comedy for a while? And you just like and I remember being back there, and I'm going like, he just told people to shut up and you should listen instead of being, and it was just like amazing, dude. And I was like, oh, this dude is real. And another thing you told me, and you're the first person, because you always hear people say about working out and about, oh, this is what you need to do and this is what you need to eat. And you just looked at me and you go, dude, you don't need a gym. You go, try to do 200 push-ups throughout the day. Okay. Obviously watch what you eat and drink, but do push-ups all day, jump rope, and do that shit. And you're going to slowly see your body transform. And I was like, you know what? This guy has been now, were you a kickboxing champion in Ireland?
Back in the day, yeah, a long time ago. Years and years ago.
Yeah, so this guy's a fucking kickboxing champion, which is hard enough, and then decides, I'm going to go to the U.S. and do stand-up, okay? Right. And then he starts to run marathons, So you're an inspiration, dude, because you're one of those guys that you like it difficult. You like it hard. I'm sure you're a type of guy that loves golf because it's difficult. Like, yeah. I've noticed there are two types of people, and I think there's that, like guys like us who like to kind of conquer things that are a little difficult, almost as like a challenge to ourselves. And then there's people who obviously, decided to, and there's nothing wrong with that. They decided to have a 9 to 5 and do what they do and get their paycheck, and that's great. But talk about that for a second, because I almost feel like there's something with fighters that are very similar to comedians, where it's like Chris Rock kind of compared the two in boxing, where he's like, you're alone. You either get knocked out and that's bombing, or you beat somebody's ass and that's you kind of having a good set or killing. But also the mentality, because it takes a certain person, Mick, and tell me if I'm wrong, because you fought, I didn't, but it takes a certain type of person to want to do what these MMA guys do, what you did as a kickboxer, to train, knowing you're going to go combat with another man across the ring and do that. And then to actually know you're going to get on stage, tell jokes, be up there by yourself, sink or swim. The joke is either going to do good or not. What did you have the same feeling of a big gig and a big fight, or is it completely different?
Well, the fighting comedy, I've never been worried about stand-up ever. I mean, look, I've been in the same meetings, like some of the same meetings you've been in, and It's a little bit of like, all right, this is not my wheelhouse, right? I know how to tell jokes. Yeah. I know how to write jokes. I don't know how to smooth this guy and make him like me. That's why we have a manager for that, right? Yeah. But but for the sake of stand-up itself, I remember getting knocked out, like literally knocked out, to the point where when the referee it was the first round, I walked in, place was packed. I got the shit beat out of me. And every fighter does this, right? Every fighter, when the referee jumps in and stops it, no fighter goes, yeah, that's a good call, right? Every fighter goes, what are you talking about? I was fine. Face all mangled, can't lift their hands, right? Like, never in the hundreds of fights I've seen, the fights I've had, I've never wanted a fighter to see a fighter go, yeah, good call. That was right.
Oh, that's so funny.
So that happened to me one fight. I was fighting a guy. Now, you have to understand, fighting in Ireland is like the Wild West. Now it's a bit different, right? It's a bit more, there's more laws and what you can and can't do with people health-wise. Your fighter never turned up, and if I was 165 pound and all of a sudden it was a heavyweight,
yeah,
and his fighter didn't turn up to go, you guys want to go? Like, yeah, fuck it, why not, right? So there's no real, like, so, this was the case. I'm fighting this giant guy. I'm a 165, and within the first round, I'm down twice on the canvas twice, just out of the power this guy hit me in the stomach. And even the referee was over like, 1, 2, stay down, 3. And you don't want to be humiliated, right? I wanted to stay down, and the only reason I got up because there was probably a girl there I was trying to impress.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to get up. And then when I tried to walk back to my corner, I couldn't grab a rope. I was just, my manager was like, he threw the towel in, and I went, yeah, that's fine.
Please tell me you do that as a bit. Do you have a bit?
No, it's my first time mentioning it.
Dude, that is, first of all, that is so funny that you, in your mind, you're like, oh God, thank God he did it. It's almost like if you're bombing in comedy and you get the light, you're like, oh, thank God. You know, it's like I only have a minute left.
Right.
You have to do that joke. I promise you, that joke is so funny because you're right. Every time a guy gets, when they do this, the guy's always like,
yeah.
Like, I could have went more. And it's like, dude, you were getting the shit kicked out of you. That is so fucking funny, man.
You know, and that's why I hated boxing and fighting movies growing up too, because the guy they were fighting, it was always like there's no villains in any boxing, kickboxing, and there's no real villains. I mean, now they are on, you know, they're kind of like WWE, right? They'll play a character to sell tickets.
Yeah.
But that's why when I used to watch a boxing movie, I'm like, there's no guy that's evil. Like, there's no evil boxers out there, and you gotta, you know what I mean? It never worked for me.
No, there are guys have families and married, and after the fight, but it's funny. It reminds me of the movie Far and Away, where they were just like in the field doing that shit. And but I didn't know they would just change weight classes on the spot and just go, you guys want to fight?
Yeah, if your fighter never turned up. And the reason why I used to fight, which is considered stop-start, right? Which you might see the kids might do it, and you wear headgear and you're on a mat.
Yeah.
Very like the Karate Kid, right? And you stop, 1 point, right? And you go back and you first 1 to 3 points win, or however many points you got in a 5-minute round or whatever it was. And I turned up to watch these men fight one day as I was like 13, whatever year the first Batman came out. That's when it happened. Because I remember wearing a Batman t-shirt, the Jack Nicholson one.
Yeah.
Whatever year that was. So I remember just watching this fight, and my coach came over to me, who used to train us, the kids and the adults. He go, hey, listen, you're about the same size as this guy. His fight never turned up. You want to just jump in? And I was like, all right. Like, it was in a bar, and they had a ring set up. And I just remember getting the shit kicked out of me, but I held my own for 3 rounds, which was a lot longer than anyone thought I was going to do. I was like, all right, I'll do it.
There is something about Irish dudes, okay? You guys, there is something, it's almost like Italians with food. You guys there is something about, you know, my Irish friends, they don't get hungover, and if they are hungover, they ignore it. You guys will just you guys will drink till 4 o'clock. I had friends that would drink till 4 o'clock in the morning, and they had to be to work at 7. And I know they're still drunk. I mean, math and science tells you they're still drunk, and they pack up their shit. They disappear. You're like, oh, what happened to Sean? Oh, Sean went to work, and you're like, what? And then and it's just like where maybe it's like the Mediterranean thing where our genetics might be, you know, but we just like, dude, I'm never going to that job again. Or like, I'm just, you know, I partied. You guys have this, there is a toughness that I think you guys are animals. Like, and here's the thing too, you're fighting like you're like, oh, this guy's probably going to beat my ass in one round. So you're mentally like, I'm going at least 3.
Right. And that's what it is.
Yeah. And that's what
it
it
is.
And that's why you're successful with everything you do. There's no doubt you're moving up in comedy, and I know how funny you are and the dude that you are, which is hilarious and shit. So when you were fighting over there and you were doing that, did you start stand up in Ireland?
No, and the reason why I didn't start, I remember being 5 years of age saying I want to be I didn't know. Here's the other thing, and it sounds like I'm doing a bit, but I'm really not. My mindset as a kid, like your kids, I mean, your kids are a little bit older now, but even your youngest one, they have no concept of money, right? When you walk to a store and say, can I have that? And you go, no. And they go like, well, number one, you shouldn't get them for the sake of it, but they don't understand that, like, well, you can't just get a PlayStation on a Wednesday. Right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
When I grew up in Ireland, I thought life was like you watch Sesame Street, right? And I would watch Grover or Oscar the Grouch, and the mailman would walk up, and then the doctor would walk up, and I thought everything, like everyone, there was no such thing as a salary. Everyone just had a job, right? Like there was the town doctor, there was the town, like the guy who cleaned your windows. There was like everyone had a job, and that I didn't understand the concept of a pay scale or, dude, that guy's a fucking, keep that up, you'll be, emptying garbage for the rest of your life or whatever. So my thing was like, I was 5 years old. I was like, I want to be the comedian, because I used to listen to Billy Connolly records, and I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be just a town funny guy. And then you realize in Ireland, especially my upbringing, my family, my friends, they're so fucking funny that how can I step forward and go, because I'm not that, like my two brothers, way funnier than me, but they just don't have any desire to do what we do. They don't see the art form in it.
Right.
They just constantly go back. That's just who they are. So I'm like, I had a lot of doubt. I'm like, how can I be funny professionally around a nation of people that are just naturally funny all the time? So when I came here, I was like, all right, I can, I got such an education very fast on different stand-ups when I came here.
Was there ever a time you're in the middle of a kickboxing, you're fighting in a match, and while you're fighting, you're like, fuck, man, I wish I was on stage telling jokes? Like, did you have an epiphany, like while you were like, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to be funny? Or were you like, oh, did you, I guess the question is, did you want to come to the States, do stand-up and fight here too?
No, I came to the States because I got married. My wife is from here. And I asked her when we got married, so where do you want to live? Do you want to live in Ireland, or do you want to live over here? And because I would have lived anywhere. And she said, let's live here. Her family, she's closer to her family. It's like, all right, let's do that. But I always wanted to do stand-up. So at the time UFC was coming up, it was getting really big. You're talking about 16, 17 years ago. So the UFC was really coming up. So there was no kickboxing clubs anywhere, right? And I would never do MMA because I don't have enough. I have no ground skills at all. If I fell, I would just tap, because once, no matter who it is, if you grab me, it's over. And I'm not, and I wouldn't disrespect the sport by taking a few strip mall judo lessons.
Right.
And then,
right.
And then turn it up and go, hey, let's do it, because it's disrespectful to them. Like, I would stand up with anybody, but I have no ground skill. So I moved over to boxing. I went to the Golden Gloves 2 years. I didn't last long. It was just, that's just the way it was. But I before I turned 30 years of age, I said I want to try stand up, at least once in my life. And I got on stage the first time, and that was it. That was it. I was hooked. I've been doing it, 13 years ever since.
That's amazing. Where's the first place you did it at?
Governors.
Oh, okay.
Governors. And when I came over here, man, I got such an education of what stand-up is and what it should be. Because you go to Europe, right? And I'll probably get shit for saying this, but, but Europe, I don't think is close to what the stand-up is here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because over in Europe, they're storytellers, right? But when we tellers, and I learned this the hard way, because my stand-up is kind of similar to yours, right? As we talk about our lives, so they're all stories.
Yeah.
Which is always my favorite style of comedy. But you go to Ireland, that's pretty much what all the stand-up is. Like, there's no Mitch Hedbergs of Ireland. right? Not that I know of course. Again, that may have changed. They were all storytellers, but there was a lot of fat on the story. And when I moved here, I learned how to be a storyteller, just like what you are. Whereas you tell that story, but like if I want to tell a story like, hey, I drove to the store the other day in my blue car. Well, they don't need to know the car was blue, right? Little things like that.
Oh, okay.
That you learned how to trim the fat, be a storyteller, but cut the shit out that they don't need.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, and I always like what I'm trying to do more and more as I evolve in comedy. I did it in my first hour a little bit, but now this next one even more. It's like not only stories, but throwing in quick jokes more and everything. It's almost like you want all parts of your game, like you were talking about in MMA. You have ground game, you have hand game, stand-up boxing and all that. It's the same thing with comedy. It's like I want to do the stories, but then throw a quick one in there, maybe an act out, maybe some dark serious shit, but then some silly goofy shit, and have the whole thing strung along. And that's really interesting about like, oh, the blue car. Well, no, just say I was driving to the store and it's quicker.
They don't need to know. They don't need to know the color of the car.
Exactly. No, that's actually really interesting. I want to ask you this, and obviously, I never get political on the Virzi effect.
Sure.
With your perspective of, and again, I'm not asking you to either. We don't do that on the show.
Okay.
But obviously say whatever you feel with everything that you're seeing from you being from Ireland. And obviously I'm sure you've had there've been some political turmoil there and divide there. I don't know if is as much as this is with the country in half, literally. But when you watch this from afar, are you just like, I guess my question is, what's the perspective of somebody who is from Europe, somebody that had kind of dealt with your thing, and now you're seeing such a divide, such a, like, almost like, because this is not even normal it doesn't seem like this is normal for even America. Like now it's like line in the sand, and it's either you're with us, against us, you're either the enemy, where it used to be like, well, wait a minute. I know people on the left and the right that could shake hands and have a beer and say, hey, we disagree, cheers. So is it a different perspective from what you've seen, or is it similar?
Right now with this situation, it's similar, because like today, I think it was today, started a lockdown in Ireland for 6 weeks where you cannot leave your home. You cannot go more than 5 kilometers, which is 3.4 miles or something. You can't go more than that from your house. If you get caught away from your house, you can get a fine, on the spot fine from the cops.
Wow.
Now, some people here might go, well, that's a great idea, right? Let's lock it down and get it over and done with. But then there's other people, as you go to other states here, and it's when people ask me that though as a comparison, it's so hard because there's 3 billion people in this country, right? Ireland has half the population of Long Island, so it's like,
right.
And when people go, they always tell me like, well, the healthcare is really great in Ireland because it's free. I'm like, well, no, it's not. Like, it's not. It's because it's free. You have to go on these fucking long waiting lists. Like my dad, as you know, died of cancer this year, a few months ago. And, I feel like he would have got more chemo if he was put back, you get your shot of chemo and you're supposed to go. Over here, you would go a lot more frequent, but over there, it's like, well, because it's free, you got to go back to the back of the line to your next one. So,
oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So, and so when you look at like what my perception over here is, I've lived over here long enough now where I don't really have political opinions of any kind. Like the other day, I'm leaving my house and I go to drive, and there is a 5-mile line of pickup trucks, right, with their flags, and the road was blocked. Now, I didn't know who it was. I mean, you can guess.
Yeah.
But I was like, whoever that is, I wouldn't vote for him based on that asshole. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if your people are blocking me in from going somewhere, I'm not voting for you. That's it. That is fucking it. Like, the amount of times I've been stuck on the George Washington Bridge, and if I had a time machine, I would kick him right in the nuts and go, that's for your fucking bridge. 4 hours trying to get home from Hoboken and Jersey, you piece of shit.
Oh, dude, I remember comedian Joe Bartnick. So funny. He just said, protesters just don't stop traffic. Yeah. It's like, I don't care.
Not that hard.
Whatever your policy is, if you're stopping me from getting somewhere on time, fuck you and your cause.
It's not hard. You get out of the way, have your protest on the sidewalk. That's what it's for. Like, it baffles me, man. But when I look at the political side of it, like I said, from where I don't really, because here's the thing, everyone is full of shit. Like both candidates, I'm sorry if this upsets your listeners or viewers, but both of them are liars. Like they're all like I heard something again. This is not a political belief. I was watching this on TV when Joe Biden was talking. Now everybody gives him a hard time because they showed these like 30-second of him stuttering.
Yeah.
You know, out of an hour-long interview. So I think they're being a bit unfair. Like, yeah, he might. I mean, we all do it. How many times have we been on stage and tripped over ourselves? And, so I think they're a bit hard. But I heard him the other day say, you know, we're going to do something. He said this, and you can look it up. So I'm not making it up. I'm not even paraphrasing. He goes, we're going to do something huge when I get elected. We're going to cure cancer. I was like, you can't fucking say that, right? You can't promise that. And what do you so what if you don't get elected? You're just going to fold up the form and then put it in your back pocket and leave? Oh, well, too late. You have that. Say goodbye to your nana. Like,
you know what? There's another bit. You just wrote two killers right here. It's one of those things where, like, I think the far left and the far right are out of their minds. And I think people who just want to, you know, people that just want to be prosperous, man. We want to work. We want our kids to be okay. We want everybody to be safe. And I'm hoping that after things settle down, it can get back to that. So moving on, we share the same manager, the great Rory Rosegarden. And it's cool that, so you're in Long Island, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool to do stand-up and then have, like, in Long Island, what people don't understand is Long Island has like a history of great comics, man. There's a lot of, dare I say, my hero, even though he's not from Long Island, but Eddie Murphy spent a lot of time out there.
Yeah, he's out in East Side Comedy Club, Richie Manavini's room.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I think he was born in Brooklyn, and then I think that they moved to Long Island. He was out there, but then there's a lot of guys. Seinfeld. I think Lorne Michaels is out there. Like
Rosie O'Donnell, Opie and Anthony came from there. Rodney Dangerfield, Ray, Kevin James, Brewer.
Yeah.
Howard Stern, if you want to put him as a comedian.
Is that, yes. Yeah, I realized, like, I was out there one time and I started to, like, see the pictures.
Yeah, Billy Crystal, Bob Bartlett, like there's
there's a history, because certain parts of the country have amazing history, like Boston has Boston has
They're
ton.
Monsters.
And Boston has a ton, and you know, Boston's got Patrice, and you could say I think Rogan. Well, Rogan might have been from Jersey, and then but he was out there.
I think he can sit like I consider myself a Long Island comic, believe it or not, because I started here.
Yes.
Under the wings of like Joey Cola, Joe Starr, John Truce, and people like that. So I consider myself a Long Island comic, even though I'm from Ireland. So it would be the same with Rogan.
Yeah, and Louis and Burr, Patrice and Bobby Kelly, and you know, so there is it's amazing that certain parts of the country just have, but like Long Island is not talked about enough, I guess, because people put you guys under the umbrella of New York, but the island itself has some really, so it is kind of funny that like your wife's family from there,
right?
And you happen to go to Ireland, and go from Ireland to say, hey, I'll go wherever you want to go. You wanted to do comedy, and then you land at a place where you have like those really amazing opportunities to do it. Have you been able to, other than like Governors, have you been able to get out and do anything?
Uncle Vinny's in New Jersey, which is probably one of my, I'm trying to think before I say it and don't want to piss people off, but it's probably my favorite Jersey club. Yeah. Just out of, when I say the favorite, it's the kind of welcome you get there. For me, what makes it a favorite club is your comfort level, right? If you can walk in and if you bomb, they know that, you know what, Mick, that's fine. That's just how, it's just what happens.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to hold it against you. Like, I don't know if we can have you back. You know, it's like that's what to me means like a favorite club. what feels home. But I've gone to Jersey. I got one or two. They're done now. They've been like a private gig in Connecticut here and there. But Ray Goots, comedian, used to be the manager of Caroline's.
Yeah, I know him.
Out of his backyard runs a comedy show. And I'm telling you, man, it is like some of the big guys are running in there, turning up. It is a fun show. I'm there again Saturday night. It is a fun show.
It's in his backyard? What does he have?
Backyard, social distancing. He has 3 shows a day. Day.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. Doesn't charge.
What is it? Just chairs?
Just chairs and benches.
Wow.
And it's just great to get out and like you, I mean, I'm not up to episode 469 on a podcast, but like to me, my podcast is a huge help for me because I write when I talk. I go up on stage and I pick my topics, my key points, and then just like this, like you said, I got 2 bits, I talk them out, right? That's how. So for me, the podcast is a huge help for me in relation to being creative and moving and getting your brain working.
When I first started to do the Virzi Effect, talking about podcasts, I didn't have any idea what podcasts were going to turn into. And I really didn't even do it for that. What I did it for was to talk to my fans that came out to shows, to thank them, to maybe tell a funny story here or there or have a segment. And then that's why during pandemic and even before pandemic, you knew how important they were. That's why I built the studio when I actually had time and I was able to do that. But the one thing that you just said, which you hit it on the head, is when I first started doing a podcast, even audio, like 10 years ago, just sitting there trying to get through 20 minutes, half hour, somebody said, wait till you see what it does for your stand-up. And it's an amazing thing because we're working a muscle. When you're doing a podcast, especially alone, you do it alone, right?
All alone. Once in a while, I'll have a guest on. You were a guest on it. And,
yes.
I kind of, when the pandemic hit, I used to do once a week. And I said, you know what? Let me get 3 a week out. And that's when I started having guests. But now that we're back to normal, I pretty much do most of them by myself. Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're talking stuff out. So what happens is when there's a moment on stage where you might be just talking or things don't go the way you've worked the muscle now, almost like you're working you're working out in a gym. You're working that muscle of like, hey, I can maneuver here now because was it Cheaper Than Therapy? Is that
Cheaper Than Therapy? Yeah.
Guys, check out Mick's podcast, Cheaper Than Therapy. I had it, dude. You really, I want to talk to you about. I want to thank you because I'll literally be thinking about you during the day when I didn't do enough push-ups and I go, come on, Dick, you know what? You only got 35 in right now. You got to keep going. And I'll literally drop down. But it was one of the truest things ever, Mick. And for anybody listening to this, even if you're like hopeless, out of shape, it's a simple thing. And it worked for me. And cutting booze out is, I don't care what anybody says, it's a guarantee 10 to 20 pounds depending on how much you drink. But if you drop down and just start with as many push-ups as you could do, then later that day do it again. Amazing to see. Like now I don't really worry when I put a shirt on, because I was always worried about the titties popping out. I'm not even joking. You're always worried about and when you do it for long enough and the shirt goes on, you're like, oh, it's just now it's a little bump instead of some embarrassing shit.
Right. It's great, man. And
it does get the core. It gets the stomach somewhat. Jump roping, that's something that I continue to need to be better with. That's the weakest part of my game. Right. But the push-ups, man, you were right. No gym needed. Save that membership money.
Oh, you got it, man. I started off, and I wasn't always a push-up guy either. I would go to the gym and bench and do flies and waste my fucking time. I look back on it, and I think of the years wasted, man. And it's just like, so now I started off with, all right, and I set a goal for 100 push-ups that day, and that was my goal, and I dropped and I did maybe 10, and that nearly killed me. Now I'm up to 600 a day.
Wow.
Yesterday I did 600 with a weighted vest on with 25 pounds on.
Wow, dude, 600 a day?
600 a day, 200 pull-ups.
Dude, what's funny is I took my shirt off the other day and I caught my wife looking.
All right.
I said to her, I go, I see you see the V coming. Now I'm getting the V coming.
That's the one.
And
now,
I was,
now you'll notice, who the fuck are you doing that for? Right?
you want to laugh? Dude, this is really funny that you said that. I swear to God, there was an awful documentary on, not awful meaning it was a bad documentary. It was a disturbing, I should say.
There's plenty of them.
It was a disturbing documentary of the guy who killed his, I hate to even say this, he killed his family, man. He killed his wife and he killed his wife and kid. And he was just constantly like working out, getting in shape. And it was because he started hiking with this other woman, right? So my wife watches this fucking thing, and she just kind of walks in the bathroom past me, and she goes, yeah, you know, that documentary, that awful documentary where the guy killed his family, he was cheating on her. He was always working out. And she just kind of said that. And I just looked at her and I go, really? Do you fucking think that, like, you really think that? Would I ever? And I'm like, first of all, stop watching that stupid shit. Second of all, I go, this is for you. So you better, this is for you. And, but no, man, it's nice to know, because I'm not buying a gym membership, because if I've done this already without gym, okay, and I have a garage with a jump rope, and if I need to get, some little weights to do it, I'll do that. But like, I go to the track, I walk, I try to walk.
Perfect, man.
The running hurts. My right knee and my lower back, the running could be a little, so kind of like fast paced walking 3 to 5 miles, doing the push-ups and shit. And then I'll tell my friends, I'll be like, and I'll always use you as an example. I'll be like, look at you. What do you know? This guy was a kickboxing champion. You're a dumb comic who eats like shit. You don't need like, no, man, you got to go to the gym. And I'm like, you really don't have to go to the gym.
Yeah, it depends on what here's the problem. Some of these guys are into this image, right? And that's the problem. When you chase an image, like I have been going on social media every day and deleting. I don't need to follow him anymore. I don't need to follow him anymore. It's just these gorgeous men. I'm like, look, my time is, I write. I'm a family man. Like, I don't need to spend hours in the gym with my shitty Irish genetics to get like nothing. Like, to get I'm out lifting guys at the gym. Like, for what? For what's the purpose? Now I go outside, I run, and it's like, I'm done. And man, when I did the marathon, man, the virtual marathon, like, now I've decided I'm going to do one a month. Not official marathon, just at the end of the month, I'm going to run a marathon out at the same track that I do. I'm just going to run one a month. Just cause.
Yeah, you're the type of guy that you have to be, and maybe I'm wrong, but tell me if I'm wrong. You seem like the type of guy that you either there needs to be a challenge in front of you. You don't seem like the type of guy that would be good without any kind of challenge staring you in the face, whether it's a guy from across the ring, whether it's a crowd, whether it's a marathon, whether it's a golf course. You seem like a guy that needs that. Is there some truth to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say competitive. It's about myself, right? Because I grew up without getting a pat on the back. That's just who we are, right? Yeah. Nobody said, that's a great job. You did really well there. Like, yeah. I'll even have meetings with Rory, our manager, and he'll go, hey, great news. This person, blah, 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 blah. Isn't that great? I go, yeah. I said, what the fuck is wrong with you? I said, well, because I can't celebrate yet. It's not there yet, right? And because I was never patted on the back for anything, which is fine.
Yeah.
Like, that means I'm never, like, this medal will arrive in the mail for the marathon. Like, where am I going to put this? Like, what do I do with this? Like, where do I walk wearing it on my neck like an asshole? Like,
yeah. It's funny. We all have that thing where we'll hear something good, and I think it's just, maybe I do think it does come from how we were raised and the way it is.
Yeah, man.
It's like good, but at the same time, it's always like there's either a yeah, but, or something needs to be wrong. And, know, do you go to therapy or no?
No. I don't.
I love how you're like, no, fuck that. I'm my own therapist. Yeah. No. Have you ever done it?
What did you say?
Have you ever done it?
I went once with a friend of mine. She was trained to be a doctor, and her final exam to get her doctorate, she had to do 4-hour sessions with somebody. And I remember when I had my car accident, my car flipped over twice. And I remember after that, like, not that I had it. I kind of got a little anxiety attack somewhere. Like I'd be like, I gotta leave. Like if I went for my kids to put their shoes on and they don't put them on, I just gotta walk out of the house because I'm like, I can't watch them struggle with their shoes. Yeah. Whereas normally I'm like, you take your time. So I went to her, and what I realized is all therapy is, and I'm so sorry if someone is like living on the edge and fucking therapy gets them through it. This is my dumb opinion.
Yeah.
Is if all you go to therapists is they let you talk until you come up with a solution. I'm like, well, why the fuck am I paying you then? I talk enough in my head. You know what I mean?
You know what's funny about that? There's actually, even though that's funny, there's really some truth to that. I remember the late, great Kobe Bryant, rest his soul. But Kobe said something where he was like, if you kind of talk to yourself and you're your own therapist, I remember, this is actually crazy to say. I can't believe you brought this up. I was walking the track today.
Okay.
I was going to go yesterday, and typical comics, I walk out of my house and I see Giannis Papas's dog and my dog playing, because Giannis lives in my neighborhood and he's going up the street. Long story short, Giannis and I start shooting the shit. We go in my backyard and we're talking, and he's like, I know I fucked up your day going to the track and everything. So I woke up today and I was like, I got to go to the track. And I got a lot of stuff going on right now, and I'm starting to think of things, and I'm just walking the track thinking about it. And I'm literally, and then I started thinking of things that were bothering me. And I started talking out loud. Dude, like luckily there was like another person on the track far away. But I started talking out loud. I turned the music off and I started talking it out, going, no, man, but that person did that because, and I'm literally doing it. And as I'm going around the track, I'm going, wow, like I'm in therapy right now with myself. And I was able to recognize the parts that were me. And then then it got so crazy to one point I said, no, but you are right about this. And I said that out loud. And I'm going, I'm either a psychopath or I'm mentally growing. But it was a really weird thing, but it seemed, and I came home and I told my wife, I go, I actually just had a therapy session with myself walking the track. I definitely think therapy helps. I've
without a doubt for some people, but for me, no.
Yeah. I think it's about the person, me getting it out and giving that burden to somebody a little bit. When I walked into the parking lot, I was like, okay. But then I had this guy who, like, I was always his last appointment. And he would look.
Oh shit!
Yeah, he was exhausted, and he was so enamored that I was a comedian. I swear to God, one time he was just like, "So let me ask you, do you ever meet Rodney? You go to Dangerfield?" Like, and I was just, like, "All right, dude, you're looking at the clock and you're asking me about," and I knew, I was like, "This is just not." But then I think you could get somebody that really breaks you down.
Right.
It's kind of like Good Will Hunting, when he was just going and he was fucking with them, and finally Robin Williams was like, oh, this is what you are. And then he realized it. I do think that person is that. Listen, we don't have time to find that fucking guy, you know,
sure.
or woman. We don't have time. But if you do catch somebody like that, I would just want to tell a real quick story for the listeners, because so I really suffered, especially in my mid to late 20s, with OCD bad, to the point where it was
that's a tough one, man. A lot of people laugh that off. That's a tough one to have.
And it was the mental one. So it wasn't really the washing the hands, or it was more of like, I would think like, would I hurt a loved one? Would I throw my baby?
Yeah.
Some shit that you just wouldn't do, and it hurts, right? So all kinds of like aggressive, violent, sexual, like really nutty, wild shit. And it hurt me. So I was just looking online, dude. And after years, I came across this woman who's a doctor in Boston. She's like the #1 OCD doctor. It was like 6-month wait to meet with her.
Jesus.
And she wrote something about exactly my condition. It's called pure obsessive. And it's more thoughts and unwanted and aggressive thoughts, whether sexual, whether violent, whether self-harm, all these different things. And I read it, dude, and tears started. I was like, I can't believe, like I was reading about me. So I write her and I call her, and she finally called me back and we talked. And she's like, even though I'm a 6-month wait, if you ever are in town, you could talk to me. And I said, she said, you have a really good understanding of your condition, but yeah, it's definitely an issue. And like knowing that it's like a diagnosis, and you said a lot of people laugh off oh, OCD, everybody has a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But then there's like the horrible shit. And then there's people, but that's like saying, oh, suicidal. Come on.
Right.
Everybody wants to off themselves. So I think to each his own, but I think talking to yourself and do you drink or no? You don't drink?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I also think that substance is a huge part of, at least for creative minds like me and you and people that are artists or that are in the arts. When our minds go like that, there's usually something off, and I think substance is bad for it. That's just from my fucking.
Yeah, some people say it helps them create and that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, Ireland has more poets per square mile and writers and authors than even my hometown alone. I could list like 10 worldwide celebrities, right? Writers and authors and that stuff. And that's just from my small hometown of 5,000 people. And they're all drunks. So they, some people believe in it, but I think for me, it's the opposite. Like I think you clog your mind up because that's what you're doing, because you're shutting out certain things. And, if you numb it with stuff, then I think a more active mind is more creative. Right. And that's why exercise, I mean, I suffer from crippling depression, like just horrendous depression, but it's working out as another, and I remember running recently and trying to prepare for this. And in my head, I just said, you know what? You can't outrun depression, but you can make it fucking hard to catch you. Right. Yeah. It's like, the more you work out, that really helps me a lot. But
dude, only an Irish guy would be like, here's how I'm going to beat this fucking crippling mental disorder. I'm going to run as fast as I can away from it.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Like I ran mad. Like, and I'm a peaceful guy. Like, well, I feel like unless you piss me off like that night at Governor's, right? Like I lose my temper. I believe like if my kids can spill stuff, they can annoy me. I'm just a cool, quiet dad. Like I never lose my shit. But if somebody kind of, for me, warrants me to lose my temper, I'll lose it. Yeah. But I remember I was running, and the marathon I ran was virtual, right? So it's an app. So I put on an audiobook. Now I know some people consider that cheating because you're supposed to be in touch with the pain and whatever. So I put on an audiobook. I pressed play. I started the app. And the second I took off, I heard this woman's voice come in on the app. So you've decided to run the New York Marathon. I'm like, I got to listen to this bitch the whole way. Right? So then I'm like 5 miles into it and another voice. So they keep playing these people who ran the New York Marathon before. And they're like, oh, now you're coming up at Brooklyn. This will be my favorite part. Where all the drummers, I would stop in the race and take a picture. And I'm like, now I can picture this bitch stopping in front of me. And I'm on the track. Like I would fucking lose it. If I ran with 53,000 people, I would lose my shit. So I'm like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
it's better off you were alone.
Yeah. So like I think the anger was like, but then towards the end of the race, you hear this woman come on, like she's a coach, like, all right, you're at 26 miles now. The finish line is right. And I'm running like, I can see it. I can see. Don't go, lady. Stay with me. Stay with me, please. It's right there. But it's like I ran that fucking mad of these assholes. There weren't even coaches coming. All right, slow your breathing down. You're doing this. Most people at this time, here's what they do. Stop, have a drink. Like helpful advice. It's just fucking assholes talking about it. And now I'm losing my temper, so I'm running harder. And it's like at some points I hit 7-minute miles, which is the dumbest shit you can ever do. Unless you're from Kenya, it's the dumbest shit you can do is run that fast. But that was all temper. It's not, but
dude, that
working out helps me,
Dude, that just reminded me. Remember that Family Guy episode where Tom Cruise was running from his gay thoughts? I just picture depression and an Irish guy going, no way. That is so funny. All right, two more things. So if somebody wants to go to Ireland,
yes,
okay, because I know that people talking like tickets are cheap now.
Yeah.
It's a good time to go if you can. I mean, probably not now with the surge, but like,
they're going to quarantine you. I think.
Where's a good spot? I mean, it's so small that you could explore all of it, right?
Well, it's not a small, just because the population is small, people think the country is small too, right? It's, like I said, it's half the population of Long Island, but there's a lot of land there. But man, I always say this, and it's like my hometown, Wexford, is just stunning, man. You've seen some of the pictures I posted on there, and that's not like 40 miles away. It's like Steven Spielberg made Saving Private Ryan. That whole beach scene, that was we lived over that hill. Like we lived over that hill.
The opening scene of that?
Yeah, that battle. That's Carclough Beach. That's the beach I go.
Wow.
And it's funny because Spielberg, they were going to charge him like $200,000 or something to ship all those props back to the States. So he went up to some farmer and he bought a piece of land for like 10 grand. He goes, here, dump all that shit and call it a Saving Private Ryan museum.
Dude.
But yeah, you can always go to the west of Ireland. It depends on if you're looking for beauty, stay over to the west, and along the coast. Like my town is a coastal town. Then if you're looking for that history, you go to Dublin, where all the where we fought the British everywhere, but pretty much, Dublin's got a lot of great Belfast is gorgeous.
If I take my wife there for if we go there for 3 or 4 days, I'm definitely going to hit you up for,
yeah, man.
For a little, I mean, obviously I don't want to make you be our tour guide or whatever, but I'll ask you. No, man, honestly, when I knew, this is how I knew that I liked you a lot. You were a good dude. And I actually knew you were a funny dude. And I know it sounds weird to say that about a guy that you never really seen before, but me and you were in Los Angeles at a very big meeting or a big place. And the higher ups of a very big company, movie studio, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And we're going in, and you go in first. We're in the waiting room. I'll tell this is how this business works. We're in the waiting room of a very big
building.
A big glass building, and it's a huge movie studio that everybody knows, and TV, television, all this shit. And we're sitting there, and we're talking, and when you don't know a guy, and he's going in first, and you're going in, but then you start talking to a guy. After me and you talked, I literally was like, I hope good things happen. Like rooting. Like it wasn't like, oh fuck, man. Like we're both out here. They're only going to give it to one of us.
Right.
It was more like, of course we want good things to happen for ourselves and our family, but at the same time, like, oh man, that's a good dude. I know the dude is funny. Then I obviously did see you work. And where can people listening to this, if nobody's, heard of you or follows you, where can they follow you? What do you have coming up? Where can they go?
Well, as regards to dates, there's nothing really coming up as everything is on hold. But I mean, my YouTube channel, I'm starting to upload a bunch of stuff. I got another half hour, which I'm recording November is like a 400, there's 400 people in an 800 venue. So I wrote a whole half hour about the quarantine. So I might as well just do it now and get it up, because I don't want to be the guy in 3 years talking about masks.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm just anywhere. Mick Thomas comedy. That's my pretty much everything. YouTube name, Instagram, and of course my podcast, Cheaper Than Therapy.
Yeah, so check out his podcast, Cheaper Than Therapy. Check him out, Mick Thomas Comedy. Search it. The guy is the real deal. Hilarious comic, great dude, and you guys will be seeing him more and more. So Mick, thank you for being on the Virzi Effect, man. I really enjoyed it.
I had a blast. Thanks so much for having me.
And you got 2 new bits.
Yeah, right. That's how it works.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, man. You too. Be well.